Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this one, we have a special video on the channel here today because thank you to the friends over at Venom, sponsor of today's video. I have in my hand the Gen 1 prototype PSA graded comic slab. And I thought it would be fun while we have this book in hand to do a full case review and even comparison against the tried and true CGC cases. So we're going to take a look at this one together, see how these ones hold up. Are they actually heavier than that of the CGC cases? How is the clarity? How is the plastic? What does it actually feel like? Well, we're going to look at it together so that you guys can determine which case you think might be better for you. And I'm excited to say that at the end of the video, one of you guys is going to walk away with this PSA case. Yes, that is right. We are doing a giveaway. Later on in the video, I will explain to you guys how you can enter to win this slab, which actually has a pretty decent retail market value going on right now. But before I get into the review, let's take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Venom. Venom is a new way to trade physical collectibles in the digital age while also providing storage solutions for your prized possessions. With Venom, you can house your comics in a facility with state-of-the-art Brink security that gives collectors peace of mind. I know some of you guys have some major books in your collection. You got to go to the bank. You got to worry about security. How are you going to house this thing? Venom changes all that. No more bank vaults, no more annoying visits to unsecure warehouses or worrying about natural hazards. Venom takes care of all of that. And not only that, with Venom, you have easy access for buying, selling, and trading your collection through their special online portal. Not only can you protect your high-end books, but you can easily move and trade them with other collectors in the community. Be sure to check out Venom.io and sign up for their newsletter to get information on when their company goes live. That is Venom, the new way to trade physical collectibles in the digital age. Thank you to Venom for sponsoring this video and providing the PSA slab. And with that, let's get into our review. So here are the two cases side by side with each other. Of course, the CGC on the left and the PSA case on the right. You'll have to forgive me for, the glare and the lighting. Hopefully it won't be too distracting as we get into our review, but I'll make sure that you guys can see it as clearly as possible. So right off the bat, I think we have to talk about a few different things. Number one, we have to talk about initial impression. Two, we have to talk about design. Three, we need to talk about feel. And then four, we need to talk about sort of clarity or, the plastic material itself and how viewable the book is within that plastic. And then number five, we can actually talk about, security and things of that nature. So as far as initial impression is concerned, I think that both cases have their pros and cons, and both cases generally feel really good. I will say that, the PSA case upon initial impression, you can definitely tell that off the bat, it is a very meaty case. It is a very sturdy thing. It feels high quality. It's heavy. And it's kind of pops, like it's very, very clear. Whereas on the other hand, the CGC case, it's more slender, it's more sleek, and admittedly, I'm more used to it, being that all these years that I've been collecting, we're used to sort of seeing the number in the upper left corner, the blue label. So there is a familiarity that I actually quite enjoy now that I look at the CGC case. But putting these cases, on top of each other, you can actually see how much bigger the PSA case is. I think if I kind of hold it like this, you guys can get a sense of the size difference where if I align it down in the lower left corner, you can see how much more case is right here on the left side, which of course is about, I'd say, almost an inch or so, about 2 millimeters. And then on the top side right here, you can also see that red strip above the blue. So about a millimeter above the CGC case. So quite a sizable difference, which was one of the big concerns as far as, how this product was going to be able to integrate into dealer walls as well as be able to, fit in, say, a BCW box. As far as design is concerned, a lot of people have talked about the PSA label being, ugly. A lot of people talk about it being kind of like a prescription label. Now, I myself, like I mentioned with the CGC case, am just used to it. It comes off as very clerical, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But if I pull up a PSA card and actually put it right next to it, it kind of feels like they didn't change the size of the font at all. I mean, where you can kind of see the font on this lizard card is almost the same exact size as the font on the PSA label for the comic book as well, which is kind of weird because you would think that if the slab is actually blown up bigger, then the font would be bigger as well. And so it's kind of a weird thing that the font has the, small sizing on it like it does on the card. Like I understand that they want to match it, but I much prefer the font when looking at the CGC case right here, where you can sort of see there's different sizes of the font. The Dark Hawk, Heart of the Hawk #1 is bold. It's bigger, as far as, the credit of what the title of the book is. And then the credits of the creators are actually a little smaller. So there's more sort of shape in terms of the label, which kind of is nicer on the eyes. It sort of brings your eyes across the label, where first you see the big giant number, you start up there, says 80 white pages, you move over to Dark Hawk, Heart of the Hawk, and then you kind of focus in on the creators, and then you sort of see the cert number. So there's kind of a movement that you get out of looking at that label versus this, where yes, the AU, which is not a actual grade for this comic book. They didn't actually grade these things. Of course, this is just the prototype. The AU would be where the number is. And even though it is bigger, one, I don't think it's big enough because if you're somebody who is shopping, say at a dealer booth, you're going to need to be able to see the number pretty clearly without having to go up close to it. And then more importantly, all the font up here is basically the same size everywhere you go. Marvel Kith #3, 2024 Marvel Comics, Venom versus Spider-Man, Todd Knock cover, third appearance, Ronnie Feig. It's like your eye doesn't necessarily know where to go right off the bat. And so you're kind of in a glaze. And this has been one of the initial critiques of the CBCS label as far as the last iteration of it before they actually turned over to their current label. The idea behind why they did the CBCS label as being understated was that they wanted your eyes to go more to the book and focus on that and not actually be drawn up to the label itself, which generally speaking, I can understand the philosophy behind that, but I think in execution, it just doesn't work. I think people are just more conditioned to, reading the label, starting at the top, going from left to right, and then going down. I mean, it's just, beyond that of just the comic book collectible itself, it's just sort of how we're conditioned as far as, reading books or looking at covers and even the comic book itself. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to kind of start at the trade dress, and then you're going to have your eyes drawn down to the art. So I kind of feel like that philosophy doesn't quite hold up in terms of the label. So I would like to see sort of more shape come into the label itself. They can still keep the red border. They can still keep the PSA logo, and they can still sort of have the same kind of font. But I think they would be better served if they create a little bit more contrast and size difference within it. In fact, one of the, I think, underestimated things about the CGC label, as far as the grade is concerned, is that they have the white background on the number, which creates the contrast. It makes the number pop out. And the number is important. I mean, I know that you guys in the comments are going to say, like, you should be looking at the book, not the number, but it's just not how, we operate. So that's as far as like label initial impression. I think both, have their pros and cons. Let's talk about the actual clarity as far as the plastic is concerned. Now, as far as this book, with this foil cover, which I realize, might not be a totally fair comparison because this is not a foil cover. I will say that the plastic of the PSA case does feel a lot more clear. Like it's the clarity level is a lot higher. If I had the scientific way to actually measure it, I wouldn't be surprised if it rated higher on whatever that measure actually would be. So as far as, the book kind of standing out, I do think that the PSA wins in that regard. Although, we have to talk about this sort of frosted plastic aesthetic that goes around the book. Now, we talked about how this case is a lot bigger than that of the CGC case. And the idea for why this case was bigger is that they wanted to actually create one case that would be able to house modern books as well as magazines, as well as Golden Age comic books. And basically what would happen is it'd be the same case size, and then this sort of inner frosted plastic well would basically get bigger or smaller depending on, if it was a magazine or a modern comic book. So this being a modern comic book has this size plastic around it. You can imagine that if there was a magazine in this case, the frosted plastic around it would be a little bit smaller. Like, maybe it would be only up to the edges right here, and then the entire magazine would sit in that. Whereas with CGC, they don't really have that. Of course, the case basically just ends. And then when they slab a magazine, you basically just have an actual different case. It's actually a lot bigger than this one. I myself prefer the size of the CGC case. And while I do think that the frosted plastic, kind of reminds me of the PSA card cases, and I think it does help as far as center of the book, which I do think is a pro. How many times have we had a CGC book that is slabbed and it's kind of aligned to the right or it's aligned to the left, and it doesn't really properly center in the case? That's definitely a quality control issue with CGC. But as far as this one is concerned, I do like that this will always center the book. But I also do think that in a weird way, while the case is clearer and while you can see the book better, the frosted plastic kind of puts a glaze over my eye a little bit. Like it kind of blends it all together. And in a weird way, when I'm looking at it, I feel like this CGC case, the book stands out a little bit more. Now, it could just be surface area, where because this is a bigger piece of plastic, there's more surface area. My eye has more to look at. Therefore, I'm not necessarily focused on the book. But in the CGC case, because it is smaller, my eye is more quickly drawn to the book right here. So I don't know. You can let me know if you guys kind of agree with that. I'm a little bit on the fence of how I feel the frosted plastic kind of takes your eye off of the book. But I think it'll be interesting to see that when they come out with a case that they said is going to match the size of the more traditional cases, they're going to shrink this thing down. And I assume that that's going to come off of this frosted plastic interior overall. But as far as clarity is concerned, PSA case definitely feels a lot more clear. It seems a lot more clear, but ironically, because of the frosted plastic, because of the surface area, it's like your eyes get pulled into different directions. So in a weird way, the clarity factor gets bumped in the CGC in that regard. Now let's go on to materials and talk about actual feel. There is no denying that if I was somebody who did not collect comic books and I just picked up these cases, this feels like a much more premier product. Just because the material of the plastic itself is a lot heavier. These edges are super strong. You could like bludgeon somebody with this thing, and it's very, very sharp. It feels like perfectly cut together. That these pieces are custom sort of manufactured. This is actually where the frosted plastic actually kind of gives it a finish, or it kind of makes it feel uniform because of the frostedness there. Whereas if you look at the CGC case, and you kind of go into this and you look at it from the side, you're seeing many layers here. You got this little seal plastic right here. We see the seam of the cases coming together. There's many different textures and tones because of the two pieces of plastic coming together. You also can see the book inside there. So, if you're judging it from the side, and I realize this is like really in the weeds here, it doesn't feel like a uniform product, where the PSA case definitely does feel that because it's, sealed off here. And so for that reason, again, if I was going back to just being kind of your average, like I'm just going to pick this thing up and take a look at it, this feels more expensive. It feels more high quality just off the bat. Now, with that being said, it is probably more expensive. This is probably more heavy duty plastic, and it is certainly much heavier. In fact, it is twice the amount of weight than that of the CGC case. Let's actually pull out the scale right here, and I want to actually show you guys the actual weight so that you guys can get a very clear understanding of the weight difference. If I put this book on top of the scale, let's take a look at it together, and it says 30.1 ounces right there. Our CGC book, well, what do we get? We have 17.5. So this is definitely a lot heavier, twice the weight of the CGC book. And that comes with a lot of pros and cons, right? If you're somebody who has to lug this around, if you're somebody who wants to put this book in your backpack and carry it to a con, or you're going to do some trades, or you just picked up a book and you're trying to, still walk around and go to different vendors, this is definitely going to add a lot of weight to that backpack. So, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Carrying on with the quality of the materials itself, I do think that it is really nice. You look at the back label right here for the PSA, and, this feels really high quality. It's got the nice kind of PSA watermark label here with the QR code. The back looks actually really, really nice. If you guys can actually see right there in the bottom, there's actually a little plastic PSA kind of mark right there in the lower left corner, which I think that's pretty cool. You know, it kind of makes this plastic branded specifically to this company, where, like I said, the CGC plastic, you know, it's just sort of a light, you know, little, definitely more flimsy and lightweight. You know, it's not like it has an actual kind of CGC logo there in the corner or anything. And, you know, like I said, you know, if you look at it, it feels unfinished in a lot of ways, like how this snaps together and that snaps together and all of those things. Whereas this feels like it was perfectly cut pieces that were sealed together. In fact, actually, as I hold this, you know, I'm not somebody who is a presser or a cracker presser type of person, but I don't know, guys. I have no idea how you are going to be able to crack open this thing without just basically taking a sledgehammer to it. I mean, I think that that's going to be something that you guys who crack books are going to have to figure out. And I suppose that is a point for, you know, case security right here, which I'm going to assume that this case is more secure. I don't know that. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm not like somebody who cracks books, but to me, you know, when I bend this thing around, it's got a little bit of give, but it feels very taut. I don't really know, you know, how I'm going to take a heat gun to this thing and crack it open, where, you know, you guys have all held a CGC case. You can see the seams with this thing. It doesn't take much to, you know, put a little screwdriver in there and bend the book open. So I think that the security of the case definitely feels like it's better for this one. There you have it, guys. That's kind of my side-by-side analysis and review of the PSA case to the CGC case right here. I think that there's different pros and cons to them. I do think that the design of the CGC case, as far as the label is concerned, is a pro for it. I definitely prefer the size of the CGC case, although it could be one of those things that, you know, I'm just used to the size, but I don't necessarily believe that you need all this extra plastic and extra space, you know, to have the comic book. You know, I think it's better, you know, that it fits the comic book as minimally as it needs to be. As far as plastic material is concerned, no question, the PSA plastic is a lot better. It's definitely more clear, although I did mention that the bit larger surface area kind of takes your eye in different directions, as well as the label. So it kind of like docks the clarity in a weird sort of way. But that is my review. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. And now let's talk about how you can get your hands on this slab. One of you people is going to be the lucky winner of this prize. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, hop over to the Fanable YouTube and subscribe to that one as well, then sign up for their newsletter on fanable.io, and then leave a comment down below with the hashtag Venom right there. Of course, we have the Venom movie coming up. Just put Venom down there in the comment section. I will do a random comment picker sometime next week, and the lucky winner will get their hands on this book. Anyways, that's all for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm actually curious to hear from you guys what you actually think. Do you think that you would use a bigger premiere case like the one that I showed you guys here today? Or will you actually prefer the cases that match those sizes to that of CGC and CBCS? Speaking of, I will try to do another video where I actually compare PSA cases to CBCS ones. I just need to get my hands on one of the new CBCS ones so that we can actually have a side-by-side here together. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. See y'all in the next review.